Hi, I'm Alex Mitchell and I'm the creator of Cancer Stories. Cancer Stories is a video diary program which is designed to help people like yourself manage their cancer. And the key aim is to record previous patients' experiences, really a wide variety of cancers. And these are patients who are genuine, real patients from Leicestershire who've given their consent to allow us to record their story onto DVD or the internet. What we ask those patients is really to give a brief account over 30 or 60 minutes. How did they manage with their diagnosis? And hopefully by watching their account, you'll be able to pick out some common themes from one or more of those videos. And those common themes might be things like what resources are available locally or nationally, or how do families cope, or how do people themselves manage with those awkward stages, either the initial diagnosis or the complications of treatment, or perhaps psychological and emotional complications, which are sometimes overlooked. So overall, we hope that by watching the video diary program, you'll be able to take some positives from other people's accounts, and hopefully that will help you better cope with your situation, whatever that is at the current time. Thanks for watching.
My name's Garry Ashdown. I've had a varied life with many ups and downs. I started life in a little village in Kent. My father moved around quite a bit, and the last place I ended up at school was in a place called Hitchin in Hertfordshire. Left school, became an undertaker's assistant until my parents moved from the town, and having the wander bug, I suppose, I joined the Air Force. Spent 5 years in the Air Force, ended up in Germany, came back to England, tried a job in retail, didn't work, and joined the Gloucestershire Police Force. Spent 14 years in the Gloucestershire Police Force, doing 7 years as a traffic cop. Sorry if you got booked by me. And then I was retired on ill health because I did my back in opening a cell door one day, and became a self-employed driving instructor. Did that for on and off for 8 years. During my time in the Air Force, I married my first wife. We split up when I was in the police force. Married my second wife in the police force. And a few years later, she decided she'd had enough and found somebody else. So we split up again, and I went out doing all sorts of part-time jobs. The last main job I had was towing exhibition equipments for a well-known car manufacturer all around the country. Due to the foot and mouth disease, I was made redundant because there weren't so many shows and not enough to support the staff. But one of the people that I met, also doing the movements, offered me part-time job as and when it was available, and I went and stayed with them for a short while. During that time, the lady that asked me to come up here invited me to a party. I turned up at the party and met a lovely lady called Shirley, who I've been with ever since, for the last 12 years. In 2006, I was diagnosed with cancer in my left leg, just by the knee, and had a fairly large operation to have that removed. Then in 2007, I was diagnosed with Barrett's esophagus. As a result of that, I went on a trial to monitor the Barrett's esophagus, and during an endoscopy for that trial, I was actually diagnosed with esophageal cancer.
Garry, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate you spending the time with us to give your account of what you've been through. And I know from what you've just said, you've had, latterly an oesophageal cancer, which is one that we're particularly interested in because we haven't had many people who've given their stories of how that's gone so far. So we could start maybe with how the diagnosis came about. Were you well at that time? Because you mentioned you'd previously had tumour in the leg, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
How long ago was that before the oesophageal cancer?
That was a year before the esophageal cancer.
But they were unrelated, is that right?
Two separate instances. Yeah.
Was it osteosarcoma in the leg or another?
I think it was, yes. Yeah, it was a lump like a cigarette end
Yes.
in the leg that came, and they removed it once and then it came back again shortly afterwards.
Okay. So going on to the esophageal cancer then, were you well prior to that? Were you well in yourself?
Yeah, I had severe heartburn quite a lot, but I put that down to smoking a lot when I was, before I packed up smoking. And probably too much coffee, which gives you heartburn anyway. But as it turns out, it was the Barrett's esophagus that was
that was
the main
a symptom,
problem.
was it, of the Barrett's esophagus?
Yeah.
What is Barrett's esophagus for the viewers?
Barrett's esophagus, as I understand it, is the changing of the tissue around the valve at the top of the esophagus and bottom of the stomach to make the normal stomach tissues more like bowel tissues. I think I might be wrong in that, but I think that is the basic idea. So that the esophagus doesn't work as it should. That's how I understood it.
And there is a risk, isn't there, albeit a low risk of that lining being turned into a cancer cell, so that it can be a risk factor for cancer.
That's correct. That's why I was put on the Barrett's esophagus trial to monitor it.
Yeah. What did that involve?
I didn't really involve much because I had the person conducting the trial did an endoscopy and actually found that I'd got what he thought might have been cancerous cells there.
Yeah.
And he then referred me straight away to a cancer specialist.
I see. And what did the cancer specialist do? Particularly, I'm thinking of the investigations at that stage.
The very first thing he did was had a chat with us, and then we had a endoscopy. He realised that it was in fact cancerous and gave us a little while to consider what the options were. And within weeks we were being operated on, so it was fairly quick.
So you had an operation for the esophageal cancer.
Yeah.
Did you receive any information about the staging or the grade of it at that time?
No, nothing at all. They just wanted to get the cancer cells out before they grew any bigger.
And was the operation a particular type that you recall?
Yeah, it was the Ivor-Lewis procedure, which is going in from under the arm, from what I can tell by the scars.
Potentially quite an extensive operation.
Yes, it was quite a long time.
Yeah.
I forget how long he said. It was something like a 6-hour operation, if I remember correctly.
How long were you in hospital for?
6 weeks total.
And then when you got home after the operation, how long until you began to, in your mind, really feel back to your normal self, as much as you could at that stage anyway?
It was quite a few months. So I'd say about a year before I actually, you accept what you've got, and you're still trying to find out all the different things you can do and what you can eat and how they affect the stomach and what's left of the esophagus.
So what were the main complications then? The appetite was one, being able, not just the appetite, i.e. the desire for food, but also the ability to ingest certain foods and not others, is that right?
Yeah, I find that I didn't have too much problem swallowing. A lot of people did, but things like bread and anything cloggy like that, I could tell hadn't gone down because there's a dead area now between the mouth and the top of the throat and the stomach that's got no feeling at all.
Yeah.
And you feel it going down, food going down, and then don't feel anything until it's reach the stomach, and it's a weird feeling, but you get used to it.
So you now are aware that there's certain foods that don't sit well with you in terms of their consistency, is that right?
Yeah, that's great.
It's interesting because some people say that very liquidy foods, or liquids basically, can be difficult in their own right, and very solid foods, but there's a balance between it being a solid and a liquid, if you know what I mean, in terms of ingestibility.
Yeah.
And what do you notice there?
Well, I quite often find that just drinking a fluid, it goes down because you don't feel it going down.
Yeah.
You probably take too much, and then it comes back up again almost straight away, which is a horrible taste, because obviously it brings the stomach juices up as well. And I don't know, I presume that's what happens at night when I aspirate, because you can't feel it coming up. At least during the day, when you're awake, you can feel it just as it gets to the sensitive bit again, and you can swallow.
I see.
But at night you don't, and it comes up and then the fluids end up in your lungs. So they did in my case.
That's a high risk, isn't it? Because you can cause a lung infection or blockage.
That's right. Yeah, that's what's happened.
Did that happen for you then?
Yeah.
And what was it? A particular one-off, or is it a background thing that keeps happening from time to time?
It is something that happens from time to time. Yes, although it's not as frequent now as it used to be. Touch wood. It's not as bad as it used to be. But I mean, it's 5 years since the operation, and it's taken all of that 5 years really, four and a half years for it to settle down.
Yeah.
Not everybody suffers from it, but some do, some don't.
Yeah.
There's no way of telling what's going to happen until it happens. So some people I've spoken to have had the operation and had no after effects, if you like, at all.
So there are those that are very lucky and just kind of almost sail through it. That's
right, yeah.
And what other complications or problems have occurred since that operation for you?
One of the problems I do find a lot is where they had to go in from the side, and they had to cut a piece of rib away to remove the ribs. And I can't lay on my right hand side now without the rib digging into me. And it's like somebody pushing a knife into you. Or I can lay in bed at night and just move slightly, and I can feel it moving around and rubbing. And the one thing I will say is I'd recommend to anybody having this operation that they get an electric bed. Because we tried propping the bed up on bricks and lifting the mattress up, and none of it worked. But virtually since 2 months after I came out of hospital, I've had an electric bed, and I sleep at about a 30 to 35 degree angle with my feet up a bit as well to stop me sliding down the bed, and sleep on my back. I've always slept on my side, but I've just got used to it now.
So this is a bed that you can adjust electronically to maintain a certain angle, but also pivoted at certain points in the bed.
That's right, yeah.
Does it have a special mattress as well that maybe has a special amount of deformation?
No, it's basically a solid foam mattress, so that it bends. Because if you have springs, obviously the springs are going to break with bending. It's excuse me. It wasn't as comfortable as my other bed at the time, but I've got used to it now, and it's. In fact, I sleep with a foam topper on top of the foam mattress as well.
One of the issues, if you have a special adaptation like a bed, is the cost, of course.
Yes.
Is there any way to recoup that, as far as you're aware?
Not that we found. I think there is a way of doing it, but we weren't told anything at the time.
No.
We just forked out the money and bought them.
Have you subsequently discovered something?
We found something, but I don't think that we qualify now because we've already done it all.
Garry, let's talk a little bit more about the appetite and eating and how to manage that. I'm just thinking that there'll be quite a few patients who could be in a similar position with either your cancer or one that impairs their ability to eat, and they'd be interested to know what you've learned along the way. Did you get any particular advice or assistance, or have you just really learned the hard way yourself how to manage?
I think that it's just a case of learning, really. That's all there is to it. You've got to do it by trial and error. There's lots of things at the very start that I thought, I really fancy such and such a meal. And you go to the hassle of cooking it only to find you don't want it when it's put on the plate in front of you.
It's hard to eat when your appetite is low, isn't it?
Yeah.
People don't realise how difficult that is. What's the answer there when you are knowing you have to take a certain amount of calories to have that sustenance, but your appetite is pretty flat?
It's just, you've just got to accept it and eat. Try not to eat, or you don't eat because you don't fancy something. And you can watch your weight going down and down and down. And every 5 kilos you lose, you've got to add another 2 days to get it back up again.
Is one possibility, it might not work for you, but for some, eating what we would consider bad foods, I mean high calorie foods, for example desserts or calorie rich foods, which could be relatively low volume.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? For the amount that you have to eat.
I must admit, if we get to the end of the day and I'm short on calories, as long as I haven't got too much saturated fat, I'll have a chocolate bar. Because that's loaded in calories. And I enjoy it most of the time.
But do fats themselves cause a problem then?
They do, but you've got to weigh things up, and you've got to get the calories in.
Yeah.
Before I eat any food, we look to see what the saturated fat is, now we've started putting fibre in as well, because we decided I need to get more fibre in. And look at the calories. What you're looking for is low sat fat, high calories, reasonably high, highest protein, fibre you can get, because not many of the foods contain the fibre you need.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of persevering and eating them.
Does anything tick those boxes all in one go?
No. No. Well, we used to do we keep a chart, and we kept a chart from day one coming out of hospital, partly to see if what I've been eating has altered my symptoms or anything like that for refluxing or being sick or anything like that. And we could find no correlation between what I'm eating and aspirating or anything like that.
No.
So we gave up. We haven't given up keeping a chart, but we've given up worrying about it, because it's obviously not going to make a difference.
But you're clearly very organised in order to track what's going on. Would you recommend people use that strategy themselves to manage their health complications, whether that's sleep, fatigue, pain, or appetite problems?
I think it's a good idea. We probably do go over the top a bit because we record everything. When we first did the charts, we started off with breakfast and went through to evening meal, and then started the next day with breakfast again. But for a while now, we've swapped the breakfast to the evenings before, added it on the evening before.
Ah, okay.
So that at the end of the day, you don't know, if you stop the day with the evening meal and you're short on calories, there's not much you can do about it then.
Yes.
But if you come the next morning, if you were short the day before, you can eat more for breakfast and add it to that day. Or conversely, if you've had too much, you can cut down on your breakfast. Have something not quite so high in calories and saturated fat.
What's been the effect of your disease on your taste and your taste buds?
Nothing tastes the same. Nothing at all. Sometimes even coffee feels like you're drinking tar. It's just something solid, almost solid substance that's going down. It hasn't got the taste. Tea, I've never been a big tea drinker, but I just don't drink tea anymore. There's not many foods that do taste the same. It's got slightly better, but it's not going to be the same because everything's changed. That tells you what you're eating.
Did you have chemotherapy or radiotherapy afterwards?
I had nothing at all. No.
No, it's just that's a common complaint for people, particularly with chemotherapy, that their taste buds can be affected.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
Because of the effect of chemotherapy on rapidly changing cells, like the taste buds. So that is, like I say, an issue for others who've had chemotherapy, nothing related to esophageal or gastric cancers. regarding back to the question of the appetite and eating, then, are there any tips that you would give to viewers about how to manage with low appetite when they know that they're struggling, against the grain, so to speak, to maintain their weight?
If you miss a meal, one meal's not going to be much to miss, so don't worry too much, but try not to miss too many, because it takes so long to get the calories and everything back up and therefore get your weight back up. And if you lose too much weight, you're on the downhill straight away.
Yeah.
You've got to keep the weight up to keep as healthy as you can.
What's the effect you find of not eating on the next day's fatigue and function?
Yes, it does make you tired. I'm tired quite a lot anyway. I could go to bed every afternoon if I wanted to, but I'll try not to. I usually have a kip once or twice a week in the afternoon for an hour and a half, just because I need it. I get worn out. Even now, before I was going to bed, probably when I first came out of hospital, probably every day for an hour, but recently it's once, twice a week. If I have a rough night, then I go back in the afternoon. But no, apart from that,
conversely, then, is there an issue or a trick, if you like, of doing an activity in the day? Does that stimulate appetite in a certain way? In other words, by burning some energy, does it give you that desire to eat a little bit more than normal, or not really?
I'll be honest, I haven't got the what's the word? The urge to do any exercise at all.
Yeah.
I have to be cajoled into it.
And when you are kind of, somebody twists your arm when you do it, what do you notice?
Don't notice much difference at all. When we go away on holiday, I'm active, because we go walking around stately homes and places like that. So I do not strenuous exercise, but moderate exercise, because there's a lot of walking. But that doesn't seem to affect what I eat in the evenings when we get back or not.
No. So you haven't really noticed a major effect there, really?
No.
Okay.
No, none at all. I find all the food I eat are smaller portions than they were before. It's a bit annoying when you go to a restaurant for a meal and they pile your plate up with about 200 chips and a teeny weeny little bit of steak, and it puts you off straight away. We've asked them not to put so many chips on or put them on a side plate so that I don't actually physically see them on the plate, because you see a lot of food and you just think, how am I going to eat this?
That's a tip, isn't it? To look at things as manageable portions. It's rather like trying to do some exercise. If somebody said, go and run 10k or half marathon, it's ridiculous for most people. You've got to do a very small amount in a bit that you can aim for and think that you might achieve it. You've got to give it a good shot, basically. But if somebody overwhelms the situation, then it's not good. So you're using that regarding food, where you're saying, give me a manageable portion. And if you do go out and eat, and it sounds like you still are from time to time, which is good, obviously, what kind of foods would you kind of gravitate towards now?
Well, chicken, steak. That's about it. I usually stick to those two, because anything else has either got too much saturated fat, too many bad things in it, or I just don't fancy the taste of it. What about fish? I've never been a fish eater. No. Never. Not even fish fingers. No. I'm not sure how much fish is in fish fingers. I don't think there's much. But no, I've never been. We occasionally have fish and chips on the way home on Friday when we go shopping at lunchtime. But that's about the only time we have fish. That's the only sort of fish we have. Okay. And what's happening with your weight right now? How has it been? I'm sure you're keeping an eye on it. It's steady-ish, 68-ish. Because you're quite tall, aren't you? Yeah, well, I was 6 foot. I'm 5 foot 11 and a half now. It's age. You start shrinking. But no, I was 82 when I went into hospital. Came out at quite a lot less than that.
Yes.
I've got it back up to about 68. I did get around to the 70s at one time, 72-ish.
Yeah. And is your weight stable right now?
Yeah. If you look at the chart, it goes up and down, but you're only talking about 0.3 of a kilo at a time. And if I can stay over 67, I don't mind.
Yeah.
I get worried if it drops to 67 or 67.1.
Yeah.
But it's not that much of a difference really. It's only that we monitor it every day.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I do in the morning is weigh myself.
Is that, some people would say that's a little too much scrutiny, because
Probably.
only because the variation on a day is, there's a certain random element, and the accuracy of scales is not absolutely perfect. So that, you know, it might not be advisable to weigh that with that frequency, but it's obviously up to you. I mean, there's no guidance on it. So what you obviously find that keeping a close eye on it the best thing for you.
Yeah. Because if it drops over a course of 3 days and I'm not monitoring it,
Yeah.
And it drops dramatically, I wouldn't know until it had dropped too much. And then it's a swine to get it back up again.
And what do you do when the weight's just tending to drift down a little bit?
Monitor as long as it's not for more than a couple of days. There's short of adding a few more calories with a chocolate bar or something.
And what if it is more than a few days?
I think I'd have to seriously think about what I was eating. Eat something I didn't like.
Yeah.
But quantity-wise, I'm stuck to how much I can get inside anyway.
Yes. Have you tried any build-ups or supplements?
Yeah, we've been on supplements ever since I came out of hospital. I have a drink in the mornings with Scandi Shake.
Oh yeah, Scandi Shake. Yes.
And collagen.
Which has got fibre, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's fat. It's
a high calorie, high fat one, is it?
Yeah.
Low saturated fat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I only have a small amount just to keep we adjust it. That's why we have do the breakfast on the chart later for the previous day sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because we can adjust it with the collagen and the Scandi Shake to bring it up or drop it down if we need it. If we get too high or if we get too low, I can take more Scandi Shake to boost it. I can't take more collagen because you're only allowed so much at a time.
I see.
But we can up it.
Do you get these on a repeat prescription now?
Yes.
They just get delivered effectively?
Well, no, we collect them from the chemist each week.
Because they can be quite bulky if you're having quite a few, can't they?
Yes, yeah.
That's one of the problems with the build-ups.
I did, when I first came out of hospital, I was getting through quite a lot of it. But now I'm using making one sachet last 2 to 3 days. So it's only a small amount I'm taking in comparison. I could take more, but I prefer not to.
And how do you find the taste of those?
I've found a little trick with the collagen. I always have the neutral and put 2 spoonfuls of sugar, 2 spoonfuls of coffee in a measuring jug, 100 grams of milk. I mix it all together, warm it up slightly, and then add the collagen in and stir it in thoroughly so as it's mixed. Just about 30 grams of collagen to 100 grams of milk.
So it's like a hot, sweet coffee with a build-up in it?
Yep.
Which is a good tip?
Yeah, it's a good taste as well. It gets a bit gooey sometimes.
You invented your own hot drink there.
Yeah, yeah. And the collagen, I'd only ever have once a day, I think.
Yeah.
But the Scandi Shake, I have very rarely had a couple of drinks if I'm really low.
Well, it's nice to hear that you've got a way of managing the appetite and the weight issues. You know, I know it's been a struggle, but it sounds like you've got a balance which is working for you right now, which is good.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about what happened after the operation. You know, the operation was in the past, and you were trying to get back on, on your feet. What resources were around, or did you come across to help in that situation?
Well, the only support as such we had was from the cancer nurse and the dietitian at the end of the telephone. And that was on our own GP, of course. But apart from it, that was it.
They were available to you if you rang them, was it?
Yes, if you could get hold of them. But it was, in this case, if you just phone up, tell them who you are and give them a number, and they'd phone you back when they could.
Did you need them from time to time, or was it just a kind of reassurance to know
it
that
was reassurance. I think we used them a couple of times. But no, we didn't phone them up every time something went wrong.
But nevertheless, it was good to have that. Like,
yeah, it was nice to know that it was there if we got really desperate.
In some countries, they have an advice line for unwell people or patients with cancer where they can ring up, and it's centrally manned, so that any person can ring at any time.
Oh, right.
We don't have that here,
No.
but it's an idea that could be developed.
It's cost though, isn't it?
That's the thing. Like all these resources, they're extra cost, aren't they?
Yep.
Did you come across any specific patients who you found useful to talk to, or was it the case that that opportunity never really came up?
We never had the opportunity until about a year ago when the cancer support group was formed, and they meet once every 3 months. We found that very useful. We wish that there'd been something like that before the operation, that we could have talked to people that had had the operation.
Definitely. I'm sure there's a big
got a
need.
good idea.
Yeah. And what did you find when you started attending that group? Was it quite well well attended and definitely wanted by the community?
I got the impression it was that the very first one we went to was the first one that they had, and the hall it was being held in was packed. Since then it's been fairly full, but not so packed as the first time. And you meet the same people nearly every time with new people. Some people drop out, don't bother to come back, but then you come the next time and they've turned up and somebody else hasn't. We've only missed one so far, so we know that it's well supported.
What's your sense of seeing patients who are not in the same stage as you? They could be more advanced or they could be doing better. There's always people in different stages, aren't they? How does that make you feel when you see people in a different stage to you?
It doesn't worry me. There's a few comments sometimes at the cancer support group when somebody says something like, well, I had the operation and within weeks I was eating normally and I've got no loss of strength or health or anything, and you get instantaneous comments like, lucky you. But apart from that, it's, everyone's more or less the same. There's a few very lucky ones.
And if you were to see somebody with a more advanced cancer, which obviously does happen,
yeah,
are you still able to feel that doesn't burden you? You don't feel you're dwelling on that fact that they're in a more advanced stage.
We've met a few that are a lot worse off than me, a hell of a lot worse off. There's still, even though they're doing everything right, they're still going downhill as a result of the operation. And there's nothing anyone can do to help them. It's just, luck of the draw, I suppose.
But I'm sure those people value the support of others as well.
Yep.
Do you feel that people with a more advanced cancer can still get that support, can still access it? Because sometimes if you hold a group at a specific location, then not everybody finds it easy to attend, let's say.
Well, but we've only been to this group, so I couldn't say about anybody else or other groups. But there have been people there that are a lot. Well, I don't think I'm bad off, but they are very badly off. They're still very ill, and there's still some that are having chemo and that after the operation. That I'm lucky I didn't have any of it.
How do you see your situation altogether? Would you say that you're in remission and your cancer is behind you right now?
It's behind me, but it's never left you because it's altered your life so much. If 10 years ago somebody said this was going to happen, I'd have laughed at them and said, couldn't happen to me. But it has.
The fact that you were diagnosed, and the fact you had two cancers, not one.
Yeah.
And yet you have come through it. And what do your oncologists say about you? How do they feel that you're managing? And the surgeons I include in that. So how do they feel that you've come through it? How well do they think? Sometimes that's reflected in their monitoring schedule. You know, if they're just seeing you irregularly or even discharge you, it's a reflection that they feel you've done really well.
Yeah, they were going to discharge us, but there was talk of doing another operation, and they've kept us on just until it's decided where we're going to have the operation.
And which one is that? You haven't mentioned that so far.
Because of there's a procedure they're considering to stop the aspirations.
I see.
Which is altering the way the stomach empties. So that it empties efficiently, because at the moment it's not. And therefore I won't reflux and aspirate, which would make quite a difference. Definitely. Obviously, but the side effects of that operation, I don't know whether I want them either.
There's the prospect of going through another procedure, which is never easy, and then recovering from that as well, despite the objective being definitely a positive one. That's right. Yeah. I don't know whether I'd. It's debatable whether my quality of life will be any different now, but for a different reason. How would you rate your quality of life overall? Oh, fairly good. Yeah, all things considered. Are there I'm very lucky. You still enjoy right now? Yeah. What such as? What do you enjoy right now? Being alive. That's a big thing, definitely. Yeah. My partner. Some people say, having been through a serious condition like the cancer, you can appreciate life a bit more. Do you agree with that? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to. I need to do a lot more than I do to make use of the chance I've been given. It's just getting the get up and go to do it, when it's easier just to sit down and do nothing. Yeah. But generally, people who kind of force themselves, if you like, to do a little bit more after the fact, they feel, I'm glad I did that. You know, most people feel that if they give themselves a little bit of a push, by doing one or two activities, it's rewarding for them. Yeah, so when we go on a holiday, I enjoy it. Yeah. I don't think I used to walk as much before I had the operation as I do since going on holiday. In a way, that shows what you're capable of. Yeah. By taking you out into a different environment, you know, where you're out of the normal routine. You're doing. I haven't got a computer to sit in front of 24 hours a day. Yeah. Is that your main hobby right now? Unfortunately, yes. Yeah. Yeah, there's always something to do on a computer. Fair enough. Fair enough. Even with rebuilding it all the time. Yes, that's the temptation with some of these machines, the Windows machines. Where do you see the future for yourself? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I can't really honestly answer that question. Are you worried about the future right now? I'm worried that I'm going to get another cancer that nobody's found. Yeah. Now, I mean, before I never worried about it at all. But now it's always at the back of your mind. Do you mean now, since the esophageal diagnosis, it's on your mind more? And of course, that is going to be in the background to a large extent. But in my experience, the more things you're able to do that are not ill health related, the more normal activities, the more life gets back to normal, the more it's possible to forget or put aside the worries about cancer so that they're less intrusive. Would you say that's the case for you, or it's still really a problem area? It's not too much of a problem, but it's always at the back of my mind. With the problems with my lungs now, I think, well, how's that going to get worse or stay the same or whatever? Yeah. Silly little things like you get up from being sat down and you feel a small pain in the side of your back and you think, oh, what's this? Is this kidneys or liver or something else like that? And you think, oh, but before you wouldn't have thought about it. Those normal niggles can become a source of worry, can't they? Yeah. And often, you know, people are looking for the reassurance that there isn't a problem, because they've got that anxiety in the back of their mind.
Yeah.
Have you found anything that's available that can manage that anxiety and cancer worry? Because we have some options in this department, but I'm aware you actually haven't been referred to us in psycho-oncology. I'm seeing you independently today, but I'm just wondering if you have come across any therapeutic tools or tips to manage that anxiety.
No, nothing at all.
Okay, well, we can definitely talk about that ourselves outside of this video, because we have a program in booklet form, which is a form of self-help to just manage that difficult uncertainty about the future. And you're very welcome to have a copy of that booklet.
Yes, please.
And hopefully we'll be launching that booklet alongside the Cancer Diaries video program, alongside Cancer Stories. So other people watching this in the future could also have access to it. But you might find that helpful.
Yep, I'll appreciate that. Yep.
Is there anything you're looking forward to in the future? Any more holidays planned or short breaks or?
Yeah, so we're off for a week's holiday to southern Scotland.
Yep.
Not going to be climbing any mountains, I must admit. Because we go around castles and stately homes.
Yes.
But we use the internet to look at the place first.
Good idea.
Check the accessibility, because we went to, for years, I wanted to go up Lindisfarne Castle.
Oh yes.
We went up there a couple of weeks back, went over to Holy Isle.
In the northeast, yes.
Yeah, and took a look at the castle and said, I can get to the bottom of the slope, but that slope is too steep to, I can get up there, but I'll be so worn out when we get up there that I won't enjoy it. Yeah. So we said, we've been here, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Lots of places like that.
It's a wise move to check it out in advance, and you can even look at it directly, can't you, on Google Maps now?
That's right, yeah.
So you can actually see it.
Spend a lot of time on Google.
Almost amazing. It's amazing what you can do these days.
No, even now the places we're planning on going, we'll look to see what the access is.
Yeah.
And we say, oh well, yeah, we manage that one. Perhaps climbing up a steep hill at the end of a 3/4 mile walk isn't really on. Because there was another place we wanted to go to up in the north while we were on holiday, and we actually got to the entrance to the site.
Yeah.
And then it said something like 1¼ miles over rugged terrain.
Yes.
And we said no.
It was just a bit too much.
It just puffed me out too much, and I won't enjoy it when I get there.
That's fair enough. But what you're actually describing to me and the viewers is that you are still doing things that you enjoy.
Oh yeah.
And that you still got objectives to get out and live life. And although you're aware of your own limitations, what you do is you take those into account and then make adjustments accordingly. It doesn't stop you going for the trip. It just means that you are careful about what situation you put yourselves in.
That's right, yep.
And that's basically a big positive and a good recommendation there, that for anyone who's recovering from an illness like cancer or any other illness, to still keep realistic objectives in mind, but still have those objectives so that you can still live life to the full, really. So I want to thank you overall for coming in today and sharing your story with me and the viewers. You've given a lot of valuable insights into how to cope with a difficult condition. And like I said at the beginning, esophageal cancer is one perhaps more unusual cancer. It's not really rare as such, but we haven't had many people who've come to talk about it. And I know it's affected you in different ways, but you've given good advice on how to manage those areas. So that will be definitely well received by the viewers. So thanks again for coming in, and
that's all right.
I wish you all the best for the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.